Hello and welcome to Follow the Beat. My name's Paul and this is just one of a series of sessions exploring music that we can play together as a group. We can either call it an ensemble, a band or an orchestra, doesn't matter. We're going back to 1695 for the music for this session, to a piece written by Henry Purcell, and it was written as incidental music to a play. The play's disappeared. The play was called Abdelaziz and the piece is called Rondeau, from Abdelaziz or Abdelaziz as some people pronounce it. Think of incidental music as a bit like you might get on a TV series to add to the drama, or a film, or even a game. The piece was called Rondeau, not quite like our usual round that you may have sung in school, but actually it means the parts do repeat quite a lot, so you'll get sections repeating, and it's to do with the shape and the form of the music. I'm going to play you a piece of music in a moment. We're going to listen to a string arrangement of it. Now, it was mainly written for strings at the time, but the piece we're going to be playing today is a much bigger version. As with anything we do, you need to get comfortable first. So just settle yourself in a chair, or if you're standing up, feet slightly apart, grounded in front of you, so you're nicely balanced. Not bolt upright, but not slouched either. Okay, I usually say, imagine the piece of string holding your head up from the sort of crown at the back of your hair up to the ceiling, just gently sort of keeping you supported. The reason for that is we need to breathe properly. String players need to breathe, percussion players need to breathe, and wind and brass players need to breathe properly. And that's letting the air into the bottom part of your abdomen down here. So we'll call it our diaphragm. We're not getting into that just yet, but talk to your teacher about that. So if you're comfortable, the next thing we need to do is warm up. And we're going to make that very easy. We're going to choose the key of the piece. If you look at the beginning of the piece, it's got a flat or a sharp, or sometimes it's got no sharps or flats. That tells you which key you're playing in. But I'm going to teach you a very simple way of warming up. For today, for C instruments, that's people who play in what we call concert pitch. Violins, flutes, oboes, pianos, melodicas, guitars. You're going to need to know these three notes: D, E and F. If you play a B flat instrument such as tenor saxophone, clarinet, trumpet, you'll need to know these three instruments: E, F sharp and G. For E flat instruments such as saxophone, tenor, horns, you're going to need to know B, C sharp and D. And for horns, F horns, you're going to need to know A, B and C. So for the warm-up, what I'll do, I'll indicate which of those notes you need to play, either the first one, the second one, or the third one. Very straightforward. I'm going to play the backing track, and I'll indicate on the screen, and you move up and down as my finger moves up and down. Couldn't be simpler. The next thing we're going to do is watch and listen to a performance by one of the BBC orchestras. This is the BBC Scottish Orchestra, and you'll notice that the piece, as I said before, is played mainly by strings, and it's quite fast. Don't worry about that. I'll talk you through it as we go, and you'll notice how we're going to slow it down, we're going to play it more gently, we're going to chop it into chunks, and you'll be fine by the end of it. So here is the Rondeau from Abdelaziz. You can follow your part along with the performance. I'll read out rehearsal letters as we go. Come up to letter A now, and we're going to repeat right back to the beginning. Everybody's playing at this point. It's what we call a tutti. Simply means Italian for all. Coming up to letter A for the second time, notice the music changes. Coming up to letter B now. This is the tune coming again. Letter C arrives and we have another tune again. Not all the orchestra are playing at this time. See if you can figure out how many bars rest you have to count. Letter D arrives and we're back to that main theme again. We're now going to start rehearsing Rondeau. Get your music ready. If you can, line it up with the screen so you can see me as well. That would be great. I'm going to count you in. You'll hear me count you in and you'll hear the drum beat, and the drum beat will go all the way through. I'll count you in like this. 1, 2, 3, and then you can start. We're going to play from the beginning up to letter A and then do the same section again because there's a repeat. 1, 2, 3. Letter A and back to the beginning now. If you want to practice any section again, of course you just rewind and play it again. The next section we're going to look at is section A to C, and again you'll get a count in and then play it through again the same speed, so you'll hear 3 beats and it's going right through. I'll tell you the letters when we get to letter B halfway through. 1, 2, 3. Letter B now. Only one section left, and that's C to the end. And again, you'll start to recognise some of this material coming up again and again. So here, again, 3 beat count in, and I'll conduct it on screen and stop you at the end. 1, 2, 3. Letter D. In a moment, we're going to play Rondeau all the way through. Before that, I want to show you a few little tips and tricks that you might want to try to make your music sound more musical. I'm going to demonstrate this on brass instruments. In previous sessions we've looked at strings and clarinet. This time we're going to look at 3 brass instruments: trumpet, horn, sometimes called French horn, and trombone. When we play together in a group, it's very important to start and finish notes together. If we don't, it can sound rather raggedy and unmusical. So if we decide where we're going to breathe, that can help an awful lot on a wind instrument. And if we can keep the bow moving on a string instrument and try and keep some sustain on whatever instrument you're playing, it can sound really much nicer. I'm going to play the intermediate trumpet part from the Rondeau, and what I've done, I've put a breath halfway through the 8 bars at the beginning. So it starts at the beginning and finishes at letter A. It's the same phrase all the way through. So once you've learnt this is very easy. Now, I'm going to demonstrate that on the trumpet first of all, and then show you the horn part, then show you the trombone part. But this applies to any wind instrument and any string instrument. So I'm going to breathe at the beginning. I'll count myself in, so it will go 1, 2, and I'll breathe on 3, and then I'll play it through. You'll see what I mean. It sounds like this. So I'm going to almost fill every gap. Obviously, I've got to take a little break to breathe. So I'll go 1, 2. I'm going to demonstrate the same section, but this time on the horn, French horn, again playing the intermediate part. I'm going to speed it up very slightly. If you're listening carefully, you'll notice I don't breathe exactly after 4 bars. I'm going to sneak a breath in after the long note, which is the 2-beat note, the minim in the middle. So here's what it sounds like on the French horn. If I played that louder, I would actually need more air. So instead of breathing every 4 bars, I might divide it in 2 and breathe every 2 bars. Because what we're trying to say is it actually is marked forte, so it should be louder than that. But if you're going to do it in a classroom, you don't need to overblow. For the final demonstration, I'm going to now play on trombone. Now trombone, we have to think a bit more carefully about this, because on a trumpet and horn, my valves are moving probably about that far, not very far. On a trombone, I've got to move this slide quite a long way out. So I've got to allow for that, make sure I've got enough time. So here's what it sounds like on the trombone. I'm playing each section twice because it's obviously, I'm playing from the beginning to letter A, which is repeated. So listen where I might sneak another breath in here, see if you can spot it. Hopefully that'll help you think more about making a sustained sound to help the music sound richer. Before we play the whole of Rondeau together, I'd like you to watch and listen to an interesting piece for orchestra, again played by BBC musicians. This piece is called A Bow à Coup, and it's one of 11 pieces, all based on mythical creatures, and it's written by an American composer, Mason Bates, back in 2015. The strange thing about this piece of music is it's actually a palindrome. Now that's usually a word that's spelt the same backwards as forwards, like the words minim or level or kayak. But in this case, the music sounds the same if you play it forwards or backwards, which is quite strange. The orchestral sounds are very different from those in Rondeau, and there are some unusual instruments, especially in the percussion section. So sit back and watch and listen to this. Now we've finally arrived, ready for our full performance of Rondeau. The audience are ready. Hopefully you've got your music all set up and you're sitting nice and comfortably, balanced so that you can breathe freely. You hear the counting and then we're off. I'm going to conduct on screen and I'll point out the rehearsal letters as we go to help you keep your place in the music. Don't forget the music repeats from the beginning when you get to letter A, and don't worry about going wrong. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Coming up to letter A, back to the beginning. Coming up to letter A for the second time, going on. Coming up to letter B now. Coming up to letter C now. Coming up to letter D now. Well, hopefully we all finished together. As I said before, don't worry if you made a few mistakes on the way. It's much more important to keep going, especially when you're playing in a group. You can practice some of the trickier moments on your own. We can put that back in later, that's fine. Well, that's the end of this session, but in the next session we'll be exploring a different piece of music from a different period of history. So, until next time, don't forget to follow the beat. Check out the links at the end of the video for more information about the BBC website and anything else you might need to look at.